Helldivers 2 is doing something weird. Weirder than that time that I went into my parents' bedroom to try to find Christmas presents early, and then I ended up finding... Helldivers 2 has remained popular, far more popular than many people are giving it credit for, and we're going to be talking a little bit on that. But beyond that, Arrowhead Studios and Helldivers have been doing something in live service that I don't think any other live service game has tried to do before. And what's crazy about it is not only how effective it is, but how genius it is in its implementation. So today what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about the live service, the live operation of Helldivers 2, and why I think it holds the keys to the future of live service games. So lock and load, strap in, Helldivers. We're diving into a new world. Over 2 weeks ago, I published a video talking about some of the backlash that was faced over Helldivers 2 first official balance patch. And in that video, I discussed the overall popularity of Helldivers 2 and how it's been making analysts scratch their head. Typically in live service games, we experience a pattern of high initial engagement and gradual decline over time. This pattern is influenced by several factors, including the initial hype, the release of new content, and competition over other games. A surge of players is really common to see at launch, fueled by marketing, anticipation, and early reviews. However, as the novelty wears off, daily active players usually start to decrease, stabilizing at lower levels. This decline can be mitigated by updates, new features, and community engagement strategies that keep the player base active and attract new players. In the case of Helldivers 2, maintaining its popularity and the player base over a month without any steep decline is really unusual, to say the least, especially as a PvE live service game. There is no PvP or competitive element, so that's not what's driving these players. The deviation from the norm suggests that the game has successfully maintained its player engagement without suffering the normal fall-off that we see with other live service games, meaning that Helldivers 2 has tapped into a particularly loyal niche, or it's offering a gameplay experience that keeps players coming back in a way that no other live service game has managed to achieve. Looking at Helldivers 2 on SteamDB, we see that the game released on the 8th of February, but didn't hit its peak until over 2 weeks later on the 24th, hitting 458,000 players. As of recording this video, there is almost 364,000 players playing well over a month after the game's launch. That's only 21% of players from the peak, and that's damn near unheard of, as most games will lose far more players much more quickly before finding their consistent player base. Helldivers 2's game loop is somewhat repetitive, though this is mitigated by emergent gameplay that happens between each encounter or objective. There are those moments where you go to plan to do something, and then you feel like you're experiencing the fall of reach all over again before going back to doing what you were doing previously. The game released with only 2 war bonds, a max level of 50. The most dedicated Helldivers already collected their rewards, hit max level, and have done just about everything the game has to offer, but they're still playing the game, and that's just not what we see typically from live service games, let alone ones that are PvE focused. Helldivers 2 has done a great job at maintaining its popularity, and more so than many people apparently believe it to be, which is relatively odd because apparently nobody pays attention to what the numbers really look like for these live service games after they become, well, misnomers more than anything else. Take a look at Destiny 2 or Lost Ark or maybe even the finals, and you're going to see very quickly that there's a pattern that follows many of these live service games. But Helldivers 2 has been able to subvert that in some way, shape, or form. A lot of that comes down to just how fun the game is. It's damn fun. And because of that, we want to share that experience with our friends as it's a co-op game. Similar in the way that we like to share memes or videos or clips or things like that, we want to spread the love because if we found enjoyment on it, we want our friends to enjoy it as well. And that is a major finger in the face of traditional AAA marketing that thinks that they need to spend $150 or $200 million to be able to market their game, but it really does just go to show that if you make a game that's fun, the game is going to sell itself. And the quality does have a lot to do with the success and the continued success of Helldivers 2, but that's not the reason that players are still playing the game. The focus on player engagement and retention has been a central strategy for many live service games over the years. This approach is driven by an understanding that the longer that you can keep players engaged, the more likely they are going to continue playing and potentially leading to higher increased sales and spending within that game. Live service games, or games as a service, are designed for continuous streams of content, updates, and features that are going to continue to keep players coming back. This ranges from new storylines, characters, to special events, expansions, and in-game purchases. Over the years, developers have tried to boil this down to a data-driven science and use various tools to be able to collect as much data as possible on players that are playing the game, such as login times, preferences, the content that they do and don't engage with, what players are spending the most and why, all to tailor an experience and keep the game fresh and keep players coming back, and more importantly, spending more money. Data can only get you so far, and as we've seen with many of these live service games, they all have fallen into this comfortable rhythm that works really well for the game, but not really for the players, and it's not really providing us with the experience that we need. Game expansions, server wipes, battle passes, and seasons have all become so popular over the years that you can quite literally follow the stock prices of some of these companies and see exactly when an expansion or new season gets announced. Scheduled content suits companies, but not players. Sure, it's nice for us to be able to have something to look forward to. We want to know that something new is on the way, but not all of us want predictability. In fact, many of us want less of it in our games, and even more so, we don't like the FOMO that's attached to a lot of these games that, well, it's the result of the end of a season or the start of a season, a expansion or battle pass, barring us from rewards or experiences that we could have had, and in some cases never will, because developers will render older content useless or completely inaccessible. And this is the first of many keys to the success of Helldivers 2. The scheduled content is there. It's in the premium war bond. New weapons, new equipment, new armor is given to us every second Thursday of every month. However, Arrowhead Studios has removed all of the rest of the content from that equation. Game modes, missions, enemy types, new factions, ship upgrades, new planets, none of that content is tied to a schedule. All content that is released into the game is content that the players are playing the game for, and it all happens live and in real time. You can wake up tomorrow and there's a major order that's pushing the warfront to take back the barrier worlds, disperse space bug pesticide with a completely new mission structure unlike any of the missions we've done previously. And when we are victorious, new planets are unlocked that were previously unavailable. Helldivers 2 today is nothing like it was the first day of the game's release, and it's only been just over a month. And you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you can tell why this is so special. While, yes, we want to have some idea that new content is coming to us, I feel as though the essence of a live service game is lost on pinning all the new content within a schedule. Many live service games update their content quarterly or bi-monthly, leaving the players as the ones to continue the game forward and keep the game alive in between the dead air of releases. If your live service is locked behind a schedule and there isn't any unexpected surprises for players to be excited about, what happens when your game is suffering from a bad season or a bad expansion? It gets worse. Helldivers 2 subverts the rule. Many players play every day or engage with the community in one way, shape, or form because we don't have any idea of what's coming next. We don't know what they're going to do. While we can look to Helldivers 1 for hints of the future and different content that we could see, we don't know what's coming or what this galactic war holds. And in my eyes, that's exactly what a live service game should strive to be, and it's what Helldivers 2 has accomplished, which is amazing. Yes, we saw that the GM was randomly dropping mechs into different players' games, hinting that mechs would be on the way. We saw it in the game trailers and things like that. It was obviously in the first game, but waking up to a major order, saying you need to go and liberate this mech facility where mechs were being produced, where just a week before that, we were seeing propaganda posters pop up saying that mechs were in production, leads to this really organic and just cool environment within a video game, not only narratively, but just like how we actually engage with the content itself and how we unlock content. Because in Helldivers 2, it's not an update. It's not a season that's unlocking this content. No, it's us. The players are the ones that are unlocking the content. And that feels good because that's what we normally want from our games. We don't want something that's arbitrarily telling us this is how you have to unlock the content. You do it through this battle pass, through this upgrade system or something like that. No, instead, they just drop it organically into the game, and that's what we want. I want less of these, oh, on this date, we have X, Y, and Z content that is coming out, and then the date comes and the content's in the game, and then you play the game, and then that's it. This feels live. It's organic. It feels holistic, and it just feels good in general. And when you look at something like how we unlocked mechs in Helldivers 2, players are always going to remember that because they were a part of bringing the mechs into the game. And that's the next key to the success of Helldivers 2. When it comes to live service game season or expansion announcements, it feels like we've been through the motions more times than we can count. Trailers roll out with cinematic flair, developers sit down for interviews with scripted enthusiasm, and splash art for the latest battle pass makes its round across social media platforms. It's become this predictable dance, one that, while functional, sorely lacks the imagination and element of surprise. This repetitiveness not only diminishes the excitement around new content, but also signals a missed opportunity for developers to be able to innovate on how they engage or re-engage with their player base. In the current landscape of live service games, the art of discovery within the game has completely vanished. Almost all updates and expansions are thoroughly detailed in trailers and developer interviews far before players ever get the chance to explore them firsthand. This is a preemptive reveal that strips away any sense of mystery or exploration that many gamers cherish, turning what could be an exciting journey of discovery into a checklist of anticipated features. Instead of diving into new content with a sense of wonder, I'm often left feeling like I'm simply just going through the motions, ticking off boxes of content that I've already seen and have heard about in great detail. I think that this undermines the exploratory spirit of gaming, where we have the thrill of hidden secrets that we can uncover, unexpected storyline twists, and novel gameplay mechanics, and not being able to find that stuff on my own makes games less immersive and a less rewarding experience. Helldivers 2 captures lightning in a bottle by cultivating novelty and intrigue. We don't look for trailers or developer interviews when trying to figure out what content comes next. We look to the stars. No, seriously, what is that blue streaking beam that apparently the CEO says isn't real and can't hurt us? How about those flying creatures that the Ministry of Truth assures us aren't real because bugs can't fly? What about these skeletal remains found on the newest set of planets, and why was there one player on the cyborg homeworld? Players have a long-standing love affair with Easter eggs in video games, these hidden nods, winks, or callbacks that are tucked away in the digital corners of our favorite worlds. These small secrets serve not only as a reward for the curious and observant, but a deeper form of connection between the creators and the community of a game. These Easter eggs to hint at new content is flat out genius as a main strategy for content releases. They transform updates from mere scheduled events into mysteries that need to be unraveled. This method fosters a sense of involvement and detective work among players, encouraging us to engage more deeply with the game on a fundamental level. It's a way of making the community feel like they are a part of the development process, discovering and piecing together clues that lead to the next big thing. Now, compare that to the straightforward delivery of trailers and developer interviews. Easter eggs that tease future content offer a superior engagement strategy across all ends. They tap into the joy of discovery, allowing players to feel as though they are uncovering the secrets on their own terms rather than just being handed information. This approach can create buzz and speculation within the community, generating a sustained interest that keeps players coming back for more. By embedding these hints within the game itself, Arrowhead has actually created an immersive narrative that extends beyond the game's current state, making the anticipation of new content a part of the game's adventure, a part of the actual gameplay experience. It's a subtle yet powerful way to keep the excitement alive within the game and within its community, ensuring that the journey feels continuous and it's filled with possibilities just waiting around the corner. All right, so the other night I'm playing Helldivers 2. I turn a corner and I see a variant of charger that I've never seen before, a behemoth charger. It looks like it has like an axe for a head. There was two of them standing right next to each other. I was terrified. I killed them both, doing my part, by the way. But with that said, I started sitting there asking myself, I'm like, are the bugs evolving? The funny thing is that the developers and CEO are supporting these kind of discussions by interacting with people online that are asking questions like, what is this skeleton that I just found? Are those flying bugs? What are those blue streaks across the sky? Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. It must be swamp gas. Might need to report this to the Ministry of Truth. And what's exciting about that is that not only are the developers responding to and engaging with their community in a really positive manner, but it's starting to make players want to play the game to be able to find what they can find to bring to the table and start talking about, what is this? What do you guys think this is? What do you think this means? That's a much more engaging discussion, much more fun discussion that keeps players wanting to play a game than the typical discussions that we usually see within live service games by now, which is, let's talk about this weapon. Let's talk about this mission structure. I hate when the game does this. The game needs to do this or it's going to die. Things like that, which, by the way, many of those conversations are still going on, but much less so than in many other live service games that I've seen in the past. And I think that that's really important. And I think that has a lot to do with how they introduce new content into Helldivers 2. Because many times we walk away from these games, it's because we already got them figured out. We already unlocked everything we need to. We've already done all the missions that we needed to do, all that good stuff. So we walk away from the game. But in this case, we don't really have this game figured out. Yeah, sure, you can have the missions understood or the weapons that you want or anything like that, but we don't know what's around the corner. And it's not, oh, I'll check next month. It could be tomorrow. It could be tonight. It could be right now. And I think that that's really cool. And I don't really know of a whole lot of games have tried to do something like this before or have done it as effectively as Arrowhead Studios has done. But what's crazy about this is that not only have they introduced this really novel way to introduce new content, but I think that they're actually using it to make us quality testers. Game balance is incredibly important. In live service games, game balance before and after the game's release is a critical process for developers to undertake to ensure that the game remains fair, enjoyable, and challenging. Before a patch goes live, developers typically conduct their own internal testing and may also release an update to a public test server or give it to a select group of players. This phase is crucial for identifying any potential issues, from minor bugs to game-breaking exploits that could affect the balance of play. After the release of a balance patch, the monitoring doesn't stop. Developers closely observe the game's metrics, player feedback, and performance to understand the balance patch's impact. This post-release phase is vital for catching any unforeseen issues that weren't evident during the initial testing or have arisen due to complex interactions within a live game environment. Some things look like they work in the studio, but once they're in the player's hands, things get a little bit out of hand. And as that phase of data collection can take a while, not every player is going to use specific items, characters, or classes. Heck, even most of your player base could do the exact opposite of what you want and barely even touch what you worked on. I think that Arrowhead Studios is using the major order system and the narrative of the game to make us Helldivers balance testers. Releasing mechs into the game? Okay, let's give every player a free mech to call in for a few days, regardless of if they have high enough level to be able to unlock it or have unlocked the stratagem at all. Release a balance patch for weapons and change terminated spawn rates and weaknesses. Release a major order that pushes the greatest number of players possible into fighting those specific enemies and collect data on that balance and performance. While I don't have any confirmation of this, it makes the most sense, and I wouldn't be surprised to see if the next balance patch or change for any of the enemies ends up being the automatons and subsequently a major order that pushes us to go fight the maximum number of confrontations with that faction. And if that's what they're doing, it's not just creative, it's genius at work. The recent change of charger headshots, the buff to the recoilless rifle and expendable anti-tank feels absolutely fantastic. Bile Titans and chargers are still a major threat, but now we have ways to be able to thin the herd and deal with them head on, coordinate the use of heavier artillery for the biggest threats, or handle those moments where things get out of control. I'm going to upset some people with this one, but it has to be said. In one of my last videos, I talked about how I felt that the recent balance patch was being overreacted to by many people in the community. And I was right, and I still stick with that, because they were. And I feel it's a lot of people bringing energy, bringing past trauma from other live service games over to Helldivers 2, where it's really just not necessary. Because at the time, I had said that I didn't really feel the balance patch changes. Now, I do feel the balance patch changes, and damn, they're good. It feels incredibly fun and engaging to be able to drop down an expendable anti-tank, grab it right off the rack and pop a charger right in the head and then go back to doing what I was doing. It feels incredible to walk into a freshly pop-opened hole of bugs and just shove a flamethrower in it. And I actually kind of feel like I enjoy that a little bit too much and might need to seek some type of therapy because of it. But with that said, the update feels great. It feels more engaging. I'm noticing that players are paying attention more to what other players are bringing, more diverse loadouts across the board, many less players thinking that they have one tool, one size fits all for every occasion, everything that they try to do. And every weapon has a use case. And I think that that's really what Arrowhead Studios is trying to achieve. They don't want to have us railroad into using one gun or a certain specific loadout. They want everybody using something and doing something together. They want less people trying to run off and do things on their own and play the solo game, because that's just not what the game is meant to be. If you go back to Helldivers 1, you can't even separate from your other teammates on screen. It's pretty obvious that they were trying to bring that same philosophy over to Helldivers 2, but in a third-person shooter. So, yeah, that's my whole take on that kind of thing. And I really appreciate how they're taking not only the introduction of new content, new planets, new game modes, but also even their balance changes into the narrative and the just overall experience, the live service of a game. And everything does feel live. And I do think that in games like this, it should be all done within the live service, because that's how you're going to get the best results. And throwing the most amount of players at one problem at the exact same time does help you do that. Them doing a massive balance patch that changes the way that some of the terminids function and their hit boxes or their hurt boxes, their weak spots, how weapons interact with those enemies, and just throwing 300,000 players at it, you're going to see what you need to see pretty quickly. And that's something that a lot of games haven't had really the ability to do something like this before. That's one thing that's really special about Helldivers 2. It's something that I appreciate and would like to see other games be able to try, well, within the confines of their game's themes and modes and things like that. But it's something that I genuinely appreciate. Now, the final key to Helldivers 2 continued success is its monetization. I recently watched a video from Second Wind, the former staff of The Escapist. They're doing great work, by the way. If you guys get a chance, I'd go check them out. But in one of their latest episodes of Cold Take, they mentioned how they didn't like the grind for equipment that's prevalent in many live service games, and how players were defending the quote-unquote pay for power by saying that it's not that bad because you can just earn it in-game. And that's a community sentiment that's being echoed by Gathalion, who made a Twitter post breaking down how much time it would take to earn super credits and unlock premium war bonds, which then started this whole renewed debate on pay for power and summoned IGN to make one of the most flat-out clickbait articles I've seen in a long time from them. But regardless, from my perspective, Helldivers 2 is a live service game, and it is the least predatory we have seen in a long time. Any game, live service or not, has some form of grind, some sort of goal that is only achieved by repetitively playing the game until you unlock your content, unlock your upgrades, armor, weapons, skills, passive, characters, whatever. Helldivers 2 gives you the option to unlock access to a war bond with premium currency, but not the items themselves. The vast majority of casual players will unlock access just by playing the game. Those that don't want to wait can pay for access to it, but can't just get the weapons or items. They still have to play the game to be able to unlock those things. Primary weapons, secondary weapons, boosters, and armor are all held within the war bonds. And I feel like outside of boosters, all of that content is secondary to stratagems. When we drop onto a planet, I'd like people to try to pretend like we aren't almost always using a stratagem support weapon 90% of the time. A flamethrower, a stalwart, a railgun, arc thrower, etc. Our biggest and most sought-after upgrades are the ones that are unlocked purely from playing the game, as it should be, while the more optional items are all contained within the grind of the game. It's largely the best way to monetize your game. Players have a choice to engage with it or not, and these are the things that should always be reflected in a game. If you do not like the monetization model of Helldivers 2, then you don't like live service games. And that's fine. That's completely fine to not like live service games, and I can completely understand that. But more times than not, if we compare Helldivers 2 to any other live service game, they fall on the side of the consumer. They support the consumer more than anything else. Hell, it's something that is reflected in how much currency you can buy from the game. The maximum amount of currency you can buy, I believe off the top of my head, I think it's like $20. You can't even buy $20 worth of anything in the game. Everything is far under that price. I think the most expensive thing you could buy is a $10 access to a war bond. The skins, which there's only 4 on display at a time, all range from like $2 to $3. So there's nothing even that expensive to buy. So there's really not a lot of reason for people to want to even spend $20 on currency to begin with. And with that said, compare that to any other game that's in the industry. Thanks for buying our $70 game. Would you like to buy $150 worth of currency? How would you like to buy the lowest amount of currency that can't even buy anything in the game to begin with? $70 horse skins, $30 character skins or something like that. If this were Destiny, they'd be selling us planets or access to be able to fight specific factions of enemies. If this was Call of Duty, they would render all of our guns useless every time they release a new set of weapons. If this was Diablo 4, we wouldn't even be playing it. More times than not, they fall on the side of the consumer. And that's something that I really appreciate. And what I appreciate even more than that is that the monetization of this game takes a backseat to everything else. Everything is player focused, player unlocked. It's all about what we do, what we find, where we push the game. And that's something that's really, really refreshing because we are the ones that are unlocking the content. It's not something being dangled from us from afar by the developers themselves asking for more money. No, it's our effort being reflected in the game. And that's something that I genuinely appreciate. I think that in a lot of cases, with all of the things that they do in their live service for Helldivers 2, it's all held within the live service itself. It's very focused on the day-to-day, the live aspect of the game, and that's what many of these live service games should strive to be. A very active and engaging experience to play on a daily basis, and that's something that Helldivers 2 provides that many other games do not. And yeah, that's all I got. So I really enjoyed making this video. I really enjoyed thinking about this and, just coming up with this idea in general. So I really appreciate that, you guys watch this, and hopefully you guys appreciate it enough that you'll share it or like it or comment on it. So yeah, or subscribe to the channel. You can always support me on Patreon as well. But more importantly, try to catch me live. I've been going live 3 to 4 days a week now, trying to get a little bit more regular on it. Okay. But I do really appreciate you guys showing up. Thank you for watching the video. So hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. Most of all, Helldivers, get out there and spread some democracy. Peace. Family.